Thanks ever so much, Anthony, and good evening, everybody. I hope that you're all tucked up nice and warm in front of your computers, because it's absolutely, I don't know what it's like where you are, but it's absolutely awful here with lashing wind and rain, and Storm Abigail, or whatever it's called, has definitely arrived. So tonight we're going to talk about controlled drugs, not just the update, but the whole subject, because I think it's a really, really important subject for the veterinary profession, and one that there's still a little bit of confusion about. So I think it's important that we clear up some of that confusion and then catch up on what's changed. So once my slides actually go, great, we'll get started. So if you look at your code of conduct, code of professional conduct for vets and for veterinary nurses, in the vets one it says veterinary surgeons should take extra care when prescribing controlled drugs to ensure that the medicines are used only for the animals under treatment. And obviously the reason for this is that controlled drugs are pretty powerful medicines that are used and abused in human medicine. And we have a privilege really to be able to use these, and it's very important that we look after them properly. So we need to take extra care. Unfortunately, it's a sad fact of life that apart from people breaking into the practice, which we all worry about, the other issue that can happen in practices is there can be members of the practice team who start to become addicted to some of the controlled drugs. So it's really important that we have really good control and really good systems in place for our controlled drugs that make those things much, much less likely to happen. So the controlled drugs are, as Anthony just said, defined in the Misuse of Drugs Regulations 2001, and they're regulated by the Home Office. There are 5 schedules of controlled drugs, and I know this is going to be a little bit revision for most people, but I think it's really important that everybody understands just what those schedules are and which drug is in which schedule, because we bandy around these words Schedule 2, Schedule 3s, and sometimes it's not everyone knows what they are. So first of all, Schedule 1s, there is no reason that these should be in a veterinary practice. These are things like cannabis, LSD and ecstasy. They have no therapeutic value. We as vets have no authority to supply them, and in order to possess them you must have a Home Office licence. So we're not interested in Schedule 1 controlled drugs. We are, though, very interested in Schedule 2 controlled drugs. These are things like methadone, Confortan, Synthadon, Somnolose, morphine, fentanyl, fentanyl injection, fentanyl patches. These very strong painkillers basically have good therapeutic value. They're highly addictive to humans, and their use is tightly controlled by law. Schedule 2 controlled drugs must be kept under safe custody, i.e. in a controlled drug cupboard, which we'll talk about in more detail, which only authorised persons have access to, in a locked controlled drug cabinet. So the thing with controlled drugs is that you'll find as we go through it is there's certain laws you say, like, okay, Schedule 2 controlled drugs have to be locked up nice and easy. But in every category there's always an exemption. So Schedule 2 controlled drugs do have to be locked away in a controlled drug cupboard, except for quinalbarbitone, Somnolose, which for some reason is exempt from the safe custody requirement. So it doesn't have to be. It's good practice that it is, but it doesn't legally have to be locked away. Your Schedule 2s need to have all their purchase and supply recorded in a controlled drug register. There are special requirements if you're writing a written prescription for Schedule 2 controlled drugs, and we'll talk about those. And destruction of Schedule 2 controlled drugs must be witnessed. So these are the ones that really are most controlled of all the controlled drugs that we have, is the Schedule 2. So like I said before, methadone, morphine, fentanyl, quinalbarbitone, they're all Schedule 2 controlled drugs. Okay, so the next one are Schedule 3 controlled drugs, which are a bit less controlled. So, but of those, only buprenorphine, Betadine, diethylpropion, flunitrazepam and temazepam, only those 4 are subject to safe custody requirements. So any of those 4 of the Schedule 3s legally have to be locked up. So we can say Schedule 3s do not have to be locked away except for those 4. But the college advises that they are kept locked up in safe custody. But legally they don't have to be, apart from the 4 I mentioned, which mainly means buprenorphine from a veterinary point of view. They do not have to be recorded in the controlled drug register. You do not have to keep a controlled